Good evening and welcome to the Keno Sports Complex, Tucson, Arizona, with Jake Ziven and Ross Smith of the Portland Timbers. My name is Matt Johnson with the Seattle Sounders. And Ross, it's good to be here. I mean, it's good to be in front of a match that kind of counts because it's Portland and Seattle.
Of course it does, the rivalry. Anything you do between Seattle and Portland, something's always at stake, whether it's on the soccer pitch or whether it's the banter outside. What city has the best coffee? What city has the best characteristics? Tonight it's the football, it's the bragging rights, and so as always, something on the line for it.
How about the banter from the crowd as well? The Timbers fans here, that I don't know if everybody picked up on that. That was the penalty shootout, right? Make, miss, make, miss. The Timbers, of course, with the bragging rights right now in this rivalry. Always fun, this game that we get to do together every year.
That's right, Jake. November 8th, epic match at CenturyLink Field. Here's the squads getting together. Seattle Sounders in their new Zulily kits, and the Portland Timbers just to our right. Just such a great atmosphere. Prior to this match was Houston and Sporting KC, and maybe there was 50, 80, 100 people, and even the fans take this seriously, guys. I mean, the place is packed. Last year, I think there was 4,500, close to 5,000, as we're taking a look at the Seattle Sounders. So the fans are into it, the coaches, and definitely the players, Ross.
The players are getting a bit chippy, a bit scrappy. You know, from the Seattle Sounders last match against Houston Dynamo, a few tackles flying in, a few players wanting to lay their mark on the opposition. Players fighting for position.
Brian Schmetzer lays out a 4-2-3-1, of course. In the back, Brian Meredith, the back four, McCrary, Campbell, who came over in the trade with Chicago, Jordy DeLem, Henry Wingo, the holding midfielders. 15-year-old Danny Leyva, we'll talk about him as he should be going 90 minutes tonight. That's the plan. Alex Roldan in front of those two, Buana, Ship, Marlon Vargas, and up top, Will Bruin, the 29-year-old from St. Louis. Ross, why don't you take a look at the Timbers lineup?
Well, the Portland Timbers, they'll set out a formation. They were used to that bottom success, 4-2-3-1. And it's a strong team as we're looking at Sebastian Blanco, a fine season for him. He's been looking sharp in preseason. You go through that spine, the back line with Mabiala, Cascante, nice strong center back pairing. Then through the middle, Paredes and Guzman. Paredes, I'm interested particular to see how he does. Struggled last season, but a chance for him to really stake his claim in the center midfield. And then Valeri, of course, Milano. Look for them combining.
The 20-year-old Paredes from Paraguay has got an opportunity to show Gio some things to get him more minutes in 2019. We are underway again. Great crowd in front of us, and Jake, I got to be honest, this is fun for us. We did this last year, but it's our first game. It's my first game of the broadcast season, and I'm ready to go.
Likewise, we didn't have neither of us had a very long off season, right? Of course, the Timbers making it to MLS Cup.
I was just going to correct you. Yeah, you had a shorter off season.
Shorter, but hey, the Sounders, of course, made it to the Western Conference semifinals, and yeah, these games in Tucson are always fun. I think personally, for us, we get to see what each team kind of has brought out new, though there's not a lot new from the Timbers and the Sounders heading into 2019, and the Sounders just really two additions to their team. Trey Moose, the goalkeeper, who we'll see, and Jonathan Campbell, who's out there, and the Timbers so far bringing in Claude Dielna. We'll see him in the second half. A goalkeeper, Aljaz Ivicic, and then Marvin Luria and Renzo Zambrano, two guys from T2 who've been in the organization now with the first team. So it feels familiar. You know, we're not having to get used to a lot of new players like we sometimes do.
High press by Portland, immediately Meredith's used, and Portland wins that ball back. Ship gives it up. DeLem cleaned things up, but there's Zarek Valentin, who I always gush over when we're at Providence Park. Valentin, such a steady right back for Portland.
He has that trust in the manager. You could see that build last year with Gio Savarese and Valentin is back and forth with Alvis Pau, who's going to be the starting right back, and Valentin won out, and coming into preseason, he's all of a sudden become one of the leaders of the team, the veterans, the voice that you would say a rather quiet Portland Timbers team can be at times. Valentin, he needs to be that presence.
Here's Campbell, see if he can do better the second time. The 25-year-old, again, just coming over. The trade with Chicago, December 28th for a fourth-round pick, gave it up. Seattle brought it back, but here's Portland on the go with the man in the middle, Diego Valeri.
I think what you will see tonight, Matt, for the Portland Timbers, what Jake and myself have been seeing at training, very sharp. And it doesn't seem to be an awful drop-off from MLS Cup final to now. It doesn't seem to be much of a break in terms of fitness from the Portland Timbers players. Very sharp in their passing and the movement.
Brought in over the head of Valeri. Buana scooped things up. control things through.
There's a decent ball from Blanco. Just getting it on his left foot, and it's a nice shape. He's just trying to put it into a dangerous area.
Back line with Seattle a bit shaky. See if Portland can take advantage early on.
Well, for Seattle, I was impressed with them for the opening, say, 60 minutes against Tucson Dynamo. Obviously, they conceded 3 goals against the Dynamo. Changes were made. It wasn't their squad at full strength when they were conceding goals. But we chatted with Brian Schmetzer today, and he did harp on about the 7 goals that they conceded against Atlanta in the first preseason games. He wasn't happy. The 3 goals they conceded against Houston. And so it let you know that they're caring about results. They're caring about the way the team is going about and whether they're putting the ball in the back of the net and keeping it out the other end.
Milano now taken away by Alex Roldan. Our first look at youngster Marlon Vargas. And here's Wingo back at his right back position, streaking up the right-hand side. Now slows down through Alex Roldan. Isn't Brian Schmetzer great to chat with when, you know, pre-game, whatever, just talking tactics? I know versus Houston, he wanted to go down that left-hand side.
Absolutely phenomenal with that. Matt, Jake and I were so impressed just how much time he was willing to give us. And we sat down, and of course you go preparing for just a couple of questions, anything. We don't want to take too much time. We ended up going another 5-6 questions with him.
Pawana, too heavy touch, out of bounds for a goal kick.
What stood out to me is that is very much, and you could say so it should be, but it's a manager who knows what his team is all about, and he knows how to build. And it's a manager who's very excited about all these young players that we're seeing on the pitch just now when we're expecting for this team, for the Sounders, to be rotated come that second half. He's excited about meshing the experienced players with the young players and how much these young players can learn even off the pitch with young guys playing cards later on in the afternoon or into the night with some of the senior players, so they get used to what it's like to be around these experienced pros.
It's a really young group here, as we see now on the field for Seattle. We're going to see that more, I think, as the game goes on. But a host of 16, 17-year-olds. Obviously, the Sounders under-17s won the national championship of the Development Academy last summer. They signed 8 of those guys to what's now known as the Tacoma Defiance. Brian Schmetzer was great talking about those guys and what that means to the future of the Sounders.
Looking for Bruin over his head into the hands of Attanella. Immediately rolled out. Scrappy early on. Settled out through Valentine. I talked to Brian the day before, and he said Houston want to go up the left-hand side through Smith and Victor Rodriguez, who ends up with two assists on the night. Tonight, they were looking to play out of the back. He wants to play out of the back consistently. They've had some challenges early on. Here's Milano probing to his left. Now brought back in. Loose ball just knocked down and over the bar. What an opportunity for Portland. Should have been 1-0 in the 6th.
And it all started with Lucas Milano. A fantastic one. He looks like a man in confidence right now. Preseason, he scored 3 goals. You see him cutting right through the middle, lays it off, but it's his secondary runs. It's a great ball from Blanco going in, and it should be from Milano. It certainly should be from Valeri after that, who almost gets too much on top of the ball. Hits it into the ground over the bar.
Wingo brings it down. Jake, they're putting pressure on the back line. You are.
Nah, not me. I'm not out there, that's for sure. The Portland Timbers certainly are. Look, there's a lot of speed in the attack, and we've seen that from these Timbers over the past few seasons. When they can get out quickly on a counterattack, it can be deadly. And Lucas Milano, I mean, speed is his #1 trait, right? You see it there. Great ball from Blanco. I mean, to be able to take that, it seemed like it wasn't quite in his path, quite maybe where it would have been ideal for him, but he handled that really well. And Milano's not a guy I think we're going to score a lot with his head, right? I mean, that's certainly not his game. Had a chance there, and Valeri will tell you, I'm sure after this game, he should have scored.
I think any player will tell you on that pitch they should have scored in Milano's position, that you stick your head into it. And I just wonder, was he a little bit afraid of the goalkeeper of Meredith coming out? Was he thinking in 2 minds about that rather than getting his head on the end of the ball?
Attanella again gathers a ball too far for Will Bruin. Prior play foul on Guzman. Nodded off the head of Buana. Here's Roldan once again. Beaten to it. Villafana can't control, out of bounds for a Seattle throw, taken immediately by Vargas.
Well, preseason, sometimes you can give it the criticism, it can fall guilty to players maybe not given their earnest, their full effort absolutely every single moment. But what we're seeing from the start here, and with Sounders players, a lot to prove from them. And the Timbers are going to have to match this energy from Seattle Sounders. And players, you could say there's a few positions out there on the Portland Timbers side that guys will feel tonight, right? Diego Valeri's on the pitch, David Guzman's on the pitch, Mabiala's on the pitch, right? This must be something that the manager Savarese is looking towards as the first team. So if I'm in the team right now and I thought that I was on the brink of getting in the first team, he's looking at me, so I got to have a good performance. Players for that example would be Julio Cascante, would be Christian Paredes.
And conversely, you have a 15-year-old Danny Leyva taking on Diego Valeri just now. And Danny Leyva looking to just look like a man amongst, you know, amongst men. 15 years old. We'll talk about him as the match goes on. He should play 90 minutes. Blanco inside to Valeri. Guzman. This is our first opportunity as Sounders broadcasters not to have Ozzie Alonso in the middle of the park. So weird not to see that number 6 paroling, the Cuban, just moving around off to Minnesota.
Sounds like a lot more responsibility, though, for Christian Roldan. Not as though he didn't have responsibility before. He's been a staple in Brian Schmetzer's lineup over the past few years. Obviously, he was away with the U.S. men's national team and did himself very well. But a guy that I imagine, Matt, the Seattle Sounders are going to be looking more towards to be that leader in the midfield. Absolutely.
The man that just touched the ball, Jordy DeLem, maybe an opportunity, more minutes in the middle with Gustav as DeLem knocks it back to Meredith, but Christian Roldan obviously going to take that next step of leadership as he signed a couple-year extension and moving forward in that role in the locker room for Seattle.
But it's about his brother tonight in the midfield, number 16, Alex Roldan. Interested to see him in an attacking minds, more used into that position getting forward. So to see how he handles Valeri just roaming in the backside of him.
Alex Roldan took advantage of the injuries earlier in the season last year as Meredith, though it's offside on Milano, Meredith heads the ball away. Alex Roldan played in 10 of the first 11 while starting 7 last year, and while guys got healthy, his minutes obviously diminished. But Alex Roldan here showing Seattle's coaches that he should be remembered when he's picked for 11 or maybe the 18. Knocked out of bounds. Andy Polo, Seattle throw. Nice start to the match. Definitely not just knocking the ball in between the 30s.
There's definitely a little bit of zip on both sides. You think defensively closing down, Blanco just going to ground there just to win the ball back.
Nice tackle by Blanco. Taking the ball away from Wingo, and they'll go down Wingo's side here through Valeri. Out pops Wingo. Vargas helps with pressure. Guzman gives it up to Puana. Here's the 15-year-old Leyva. Vargas, soft touch in the middle of the park. Curry makes up for it. Bruin out wide, looking for Ship. Not enough. If you know Bruin's out far wide right, nobody's really going to be in the middle of the box.
So you need to see numbers that were going to be made up. And Harry Ship, who's playing in that number 10 position underneath Will Bruin, who Harry Ship was the type of player who would jump in for Brian Schmetzer last year wherever needed across that midfield, or if he had to be that attacking mind and pushing on, linking up with a striker. That type of player always seems to do whatever the manager says. Right, here's your assignment. Can you go out and carry that out?
Pass Vargas. Middle of the park, looking for Valeri once again, headed away by McCrary. Little touch by Puana. And controlled by Portland over the bar, looking for a foul not given by referee Alejandro Mariscal.
I think Harry Ship has done enough here to throw Blanco off, but prior to then it's Polo just using his strength, and then he picks his head up, trying to hit that big one. He almost gets it right just over the top of Valeri. It's a decent enough clearance. The Timbers still able to get a strike away from Blanco, who couldn't quite get the ball out of his feet.
We're seeing some high pressure, it seems like, from the Timbers today, Russ.
Yeah.
That was what Giovanni Savarese said when he came and he wanted to do. Tried it at the beginning of the last year. Didn't work, and obviously the rest of the season did work for the Timbers. He got it right. Interesting to see that in this preseason, I think, at least in this match, coming out, pressing relatively high.
This time the Sounders break the pressure. Here's Puana, left-hand side. Trying to get get around the final man, can't do it. Foul on Seattle.
Big part of that is we've been talking about in preseason. Jake is the starting point for Giovanni Savarese, so much further ahead. Whereas last year coming in, the players were having to figure out what's this manager all about? What is he wanting from me? And so it took time. And we chatted with Gio yesterday, and he said even double sessions, it was new for a lot of the players, and so they had to get used to it, putting in the work and making sure once they get the work in, then I'll start to scale back a little bit. And he says, I see the difference now. From day one, they're recognizing, right, if I give it a go this first session and I give everything, the manager, he isn't going to give us as many double sessions. So you're talking about the physical side of it, but then if you get the physical side up to speed as quick as possible, you can start working on all the tactical you want, and you can see the advancements.
I think you can see it. I think we saw it the first day that the Timbers were in Portland for preseason. It didn't look like anything had changed. It didn't look like anything different. It didn't look like a rusty group. It looked like they just got off the field at MLS Cup.
Yeah.
I mean, they almost had it.
Went on a quick holiday and they got right back into work.
But
Vargas from Ship down the right-hand side. Two men converge on him, and that ball from Wingo. Wingo gives up on it over the touchline. Sorry to interrupt.
No,
but it is Gio's team now, isn't it? We talked about this yesterday.
And it's Gio's team, and it's guys that are familiar with the system and the tactics. And as Eric Valentin said, that they don't have to spend weeks and weeks on tactics this preseason. Everybody understands it. It's about fitness. It's about figuring out kind of what they want to do this year, you know, which could be a little different, but the big picture stuff is all covered, and that makes such a difference.
When we sat with Brian Schmetzer and we said, what do you see from Gio and what's different? And he said, well, what stood out to me is that Gio, he came in with an idea in his mind, and when that didn't work, he threw it out the window and he said, right, this is what's going to work. And he had 2 or 3 different looks for the Portland Timbers, and he said what he finally settled on, it was tough to deal with. It was very good, and so he figured things out, and he went into, I think about my own Seattle Sounders team, and sometimes it's not all about like structure. It's about what players are in certain positions then. And for his 4-2-3-1, when he had Clint Dempsey at the number 10 and Ladero out wide, he said my team looks so different compared to when Ladero came into that number 10 position. So you could have the same system, the same ideas, but you put different players at different levels of ability in those positions. It looks completely different.
We'll see Ladero on Saturday, FC Dallas Sounders. Obviously on SoundersFC.com here at Kino Sports Complex. Foul taken immediately by Leyva, finds Roldan, given up in the middle of the park. But Portland did have that success versus Seattle a number of times last year in Portland. Brought into the middle, too close to Meredith. Obviously the own goal late in the year, Sounders got that match, but Mabiala put on a show in June. Sounders did go on a 12-match unbeaten streak, but Mabiala was just a monster June 30th.
That was quite a game, and Brian Schmetzer referred to that as kind of the turning point of the season, or at least the low point of the season. In the first half, where obviously the Sounders struggled, and then they went on that remarkable run the rest of the way. They went 15-2-2 the rest of the regular season after losing that game. 3-2, Mabiala with those 2 headers off corners. Samuel Montero's a great goal. First time the Timbers have ever won at CenturyLink Field.
Okay, that's enough.
The Timbers have the bragging rights this year, right? But that changes when we saw the Timbers win MLS Cup for the first time, have some bragging rights, and then the Sounders got them.
We talked about this yesterday. You're looking at the last 4 Western Conference champions right here, which is so impressive. You got the glitz and we've all been down to LAFC's new stadium, and it's beautiful, but they get dumped out in the first round, surprisingly, by RSL. And these 2 teams here are representing not only Cascadia, but the West so often when the chips are down.
There's a lot of consistency with both these organizations, and there has been. And Seattle, 10 years in the playoffs, 10 years in MLS, 10 years in the playoffs. It's tied for the longest streak in MLS history with the LA Galaxy, who did it their first 10 years in the league. And that was a different MLS, right, from 1996 to 2005. We asked Brian Schmetzer about that, and he said, essentially that they've always had, the Sounders have always had kind of that tradition of success.
Vargas down the right-hand side, brought in for Bruin. Overshoots him. Valentin nods it out of bounds. Bawana looking to take this quickly. But nice ball from the 18-year-old Marlon Vargas.
Well, he'll grow with confidence from this run alone. Just getting in behind Villafania. It's a lovely ball. And he decides to take it on first time. A bit too heavy going out the other side. Valentin's able to clean it up. But still, he's in the right position. He's trying to put it on early into Bruin.
McCrary, rolled on, Ship. Paredes shuts him down. Here's McCrary down the left-hand side. Wiped out. Ball goes right to Seattle. Bawana gives it up. Top of the box.
Again, you're seeing some challenges go in. Players leaving their feet to try and get stuck in.
Milano down the middle of the park. Can he get to it? Delem right there upsets it back to Meredith. But you saw Milano's speed.
And credit to Delem because he got back, and if he hasn't made that challenge in, Milano then is going through.
Talk to you guys about that, and I'm not looking for a silver lining, but the last 10 minutes of regulation and the extra time were maybe some of the best minutes played at CenturyLink Field. It was as exciting as it gets. You know, Rui Diaz, and I'm trying to take the PKs out of it here.
It was thrilling to be at for anybody, you know, no matter what side you're on, so to speak, or if you're a neutral. It was certainly a thrilling match.
Unpredictable, wasn't it? Unpredictable. You never knew which way that the match would tilt towards.
Asprilla, and then Nico's PK, then goes to PKs. You know where it went. Another great run by Portland, all the way to MLS Cup, down to Atlanta. Harry Ship trying to get around a couple, shoulder to shoulder. That ball will roll out of bounds. Nice run by Ship. He doesn't have the speed. A good idea, goal kick, Portland. Yeah,
good from both players. I thought Ship nice and positive. He's just trying to knock it into space and see that he has the speed to go on the inside and then use his strength. But Villafania, he was up to the task. And I think this preseason will be so important for Jorge Villafania. He obviously joined the Timbers mid-season towards the end of the season, and so it took him a little bit to find his legs, find his feet. Of course, he did very well, but
and
players
then started
joining
all
late.
6 playoff games and did very well, did he not?
Yeah, he's a man that you can put him in a situation. He's got the mental fortitude that nothing really throws him off. But for a player, you want to have that preseason Blanco. We saw that last year with him to be situated in Portland, have a full preseason under his belts. He just was so comfortable from the off.
Bruin from McCrary, top of the box, brought down, but the ball's knocked away into the hands of Atenella. Bruin doesn't like it. I think that was a call. But Bawana getting around 2 men with the help of McCrary.
Yes, nice move, and just that touch in for Bruin coming across. Cascante gets sold a bit. It's Mabiala recovering in. It looked initially, he's gotten a foot in it. He's also gotten Bruin, but it looks as though there's enough contact on the ball that the referee's made the right decision. Will Bruin doesn't think so.
Taking on 4 Sounders. Out left. Not good enough. Wingo intercepts that ball. And then for Blanco. Again down the right-hand side. Here's Wingo's speed taking on Villafania. One time. Bruin! Can't get his feet right. All the way to Valentin. Opportunity for Seattle in the 22nd.
Well, they're finding their way down the right side, down the left-hand side, just these last couple of minutes. What you would say, it was a good run. It was a decent enough ball, but maybe slightly behind Bruin. And whether to see it again, is that Bruin getting into the space a little bit too early? Should he be delaying his run? He maybe feels he's got the run on his defender. But if that ball is just a couple of inches ahead of Bruin, whether it's his run or the ball, you would think that Bruin would have sight of goal, not having to worry about his feet.
Ship 1-2 with Bruin, now out wide to Bawana, taking on Valentin. Had him opportunity. Valentin shuts him down out for a corner kick, Seattle's first of the evening. Let's take a look at the cross by Wingo to Bruin, Ross.
Well, it's a lovely ball into space, and Wingo just trying to get across it, trying to lay it into the path of Bruin. A little bit difficult to see, was it behind him, but Cascante, you could see, he was trying to track Bruin as much as he could, get enough of a body leaning on him.
Handwala Bawana to take Seattle's first corner of the evening. 5 in the box for Seattle. Floats it back post. Knocked around. Should and will be. McCrary with Valeri on his back. Does what he can. Seattle cleans up, controls the ball here, 0-0 in the 23rd. Wingo. From a Seattle perspective, they're holding their own versus Portland's ones. You know, there's been some opportunities. I think Portland had a couple opportunities they didn't take advantage of in the back line as they're playing out the back. First couple minutes, things have settled down, but wide open match here.
It's big incentive for a youngster. When you pick your head up and you talked about players going up against Diego Valeri, all the players for the Sounders, the youngsters, they'll know what Valeri's all about. Wingo, you look at his matchup against Villafania, and those players will get into their mind, if I show well, if I can show my manager that I can do it against regulars of the other team, then he has to consider me when it comes to a Saturday. If he needs me to call on, he can see I did it before, that I've got the skill set to be able to compete. And so that excitement, it lasts. Now, you always do wonder, how long does it last for? Does the quality eventually come through, or is there enough quality in the youngsters and also the energy of preseason, the fitness levels? Are they able to sustain?
Knocked forward, chested down by Campbell. Roldan seems to be a calming presence in the middle of the park for Seattle. Haven't seen the ball on the foot of Leyva too much thus far here, just 24 minutes in. Sprayed to the left by Vargas. Moana corner box left. Roldan looking for Bruin. Knocked away. Out to Blanco. Milano switches sides to Valentin.
I'm impressed with Milano these opening minutes. He just simplified his game nicely. That hold-up play, one touch to get out your feet, prepare it. The second touch, he switched the point of attack.
Villafania back to Atenella. Jake, what was more impressive in 2017? Valeri's 9 consecutive goals, 9 matches with a goal, or his 7 game-winning goals? I told you I'd gush on Valeri a little bit. The hate mail will come in.
I think neither. I think his 5-headed goals was the most impressive part of that season, right? He had never scored a goal with his head. He comes into the year. He said he worked on it in the offseason. This is a couple of years ago, of course, and he comes out and scores like an elite target player in the box. To me, that was his MVP year. He was fantastic, and he still is. So fun to watch. Obviously, still such an important part of his team in this league.
Set piece with Valeri. Boy, he just blew out my question, didn't he, Ross? We'll get to your answer in a second.
I was willing to give you a straight-up answer, but I do like Jake's.
Brought in, deflected. Referee Mariscal says off the Timbers' last goal kick. 21 goals and 11 assists in his MVP season in 2017. Brought in the flat ball, always dangerous with some zip on it.
This needs to be further ahead, though, from Abiala to run onto it. Instead, he's coming back towards the ball. Always going to be difficult to beat a keeper at this level from the 18-yard box on the header.
Brian Meredith, that man right there, his last match he played was that June 30th match. He had a couple great saves.
He had a save. It was like Fry in MLS Cup, right? It was the same save. I remember thinking, oh, Fry's out. The first game he missed it forever. One game, can the Timbers take advantage of this? Meredith comes out.
Right-handed, I believe, yes.
Yeah.
Couldn't stop a couple Mabiala strikes as Milano dummies the ball. McCrary smart to it. Knocks it towards Vargas.
Just a lack of awareness from Milano there. He was trying to leave the ball, whether he thought Polo was cutting in, but it was good build-up from the Timbers. The run of Guzman as well. Guzman just arriving late out of the midfield, making that run, whether it's him going to be bursting a little bit more, or Paredes. You want to see those two starting to control the game through the midfield from the Timbers standpoint.
18-year-old Marlon Vargas can say he fouled Diego Valeri 3 times. Finally was called. Portland in Seattle's half through Valentin. Yeah, Meredith had a great game. Mabiala too much for it, but Meredith had that one swipe with his right hand, kept another one out. Stephen Fry's only game he missed due to concussion protocol. Brought back in the box, around one man. Loose balls finally cleaned up by Campbell. Not far enough. Valentin, Blanco. Cutting in on Wingo. Wingo goes down, off Wingo out for another corner kick, but a big opportunity goes away for the Portland Timbers.
So well worked on the left-hand side between Villafania and Valeri. Villafania initially, it was his one-touch pass into Valeri, then his secondary run. Nice combination play. To see that more from Villafania. He knows how to time his runs coming out the left back.
Valeri brings it in, headed away by Seattle. Paredes, plenty of space to bring it back in, does Delem. Clears it. Seattle tries to bring it out through Wingo. Behind Buana. Portland takes advantage. They'll settle things down immediately. Beautiful evening here in Tucson. Not rubbing it in that I got out on a flight on Sunday over Valentine out of bounds. And prayed that I'd get out of Seattle on Sunday. As
back in the Northwest,
it's just dumping,
else, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just dumping. And all the locals here were apologizing to me on Sunday that it was 55, and we're so sorry it's cold. I said, I just came from 18 degrees weather.
You know what's happening up there.
We'll take 55 and clear.
It's perfect for the player standpoint as well on the pitch. The pitch is playing nice. You can see it's a nice roll. There's a decent enough zip on it. But also running about, a couple of the players, they've got the undergarments, they've got the long sleeves underneath their training top, so that tells you it's good conditions for them. They're liking to play in this climate, not too hot.
Seattle in the second phase. First phase was Orange County back and forth with Seattle at Starfire Sports Complex, and then down here at Tucson. Portland down at Costa Rica of all places, taking on big clubs Saprissa and Herediano. But it's so obvious to go to these places, you know, decent weather, get these guys running, and you know, the pitches, to your point, Ross, the pitch isn't a concern here.
I always think for the players, they should never be saying, oh, I love preseason. It's not the way it should be. When chatting to both managers for the Portland Timbers and for Seattle Sounders, they say, look, it needs to be a grind, and the grind physically for the players, but we got to do everything right around it. So the travel, the accommodation, the food, the training pitches, they need to be right. They shouldn't have to worry about that. Should be worried about getting their bodies right.
Can Milano find a couple guys back post? Can't get through Delem. Campbell to clean it up. Knocked out of bounds by Portland. And Blanco for a throw-in to bail out Sounders on that back line.
He's getting himself turned forward, Milano, a few times now. He's just finding nice little gaps down the sides of defenders and looking to get forward and get to goal.
Well, your point, when's it going to happen? But Milano's talent showing up here in the 30th, 25, 30th, he looks better.
He looks a man of confidence. It's amazing what confidence will do. And 3 goals in the 2 preseason matches. We weren't able, of course, to watch him, but preseason we're seeing it more, Jake, from him. He looks a slightly different player.
We talked about what this opportunity is for the young guys on Seattle. It's an opportunity for Lucas Milano, with Jeremy Bobusi on the bench tonight, having just been capped for the first time with the U.S. national team, but an opportunity for Lucas Milano to say, hey, I should be the Timbers starting number 9 on opening day.
Foul on Ship. Valeri sends it in. Another dangerous ball. Pushed away by Meredith. Sent back in, but wide.
That's a better ball from Valeri. He's given the goalkeeper Meredith something to do. As you can see, it's in a dangerous area. The Timbers players are running onto it, but Meredith, he sees his path. He comes out and he punches nice and clean with his 2 fists. Blanco trying the spectacular. He's capable. We saw it against Sporting Kansas City in the second leg of the playoffs. He can hit him from distance, just not this time.
Foul on Portland in the middle of the box. Meredith starts things up. Here's Ship in front of his own bench. Switches sides to McCrary.
It's in waves, isn't it? The Sounders, then the Timbers. Now it seems to be going back to the Sounders, having time with the ball.
Buana, top of the box. Rolled on too far for Vargas. Vargas loops one up. Buana with the header, and Buana in the back of the net. 1-0 Seattle. A floated ball by Vargas, and Buana's on the back end of it. 1-0 in the 33rd.
Well, the Sounders have been doing a nice job to get down the right-hand side of the pitch and get crosses in. And with Vargas, again, he's had a few of these crosses going into dangerous areas. Just when he whips the ball in, takes what seemed to be a deflection going up in the air. As he just gets faced up 1v1 against Cascante. He tries to put on his block. It does take a block. It lifts to the far stick, but that's still an awful lot to do for Buana. As that ball goes up in the air, you can see that distance. He's got to keep his concentrations. He's got to realize how he's going to control that ball, recognize that the defender's coming upon him, and he's done ever so well just to make sure that ball gets tucked in and nothing Jeff Antonella can do about it.
Boy, huge confidence booster for both players involved. Vargas Minutes with the first team. Buwana upset last year with the right mid-foot sprain. He had 2 goals last year, both game winners, and to get a goal in a moment here versus Portland, great for Brian Schmetzer to think about.
Scored the game winner against the Timbers down here in Tucson last year as well.
Foul on Bruin, the wrestling match that is a moving Will Bruin.
Go back to that goal. Just wonder that deflection, has it thrown off Jeff Antonella? Now on that header at the back stick, I don't think he can do a lot. He's coming across from close range, but I think that initial cross, it's thrown him off because he's expecting a certain type of cross coming, and when it takes that deflection, a looping one, but it's at enough speed that it comes on to Buwana quick enough that defenders can't recover.
Offside via Fania, third for Portland.
The ball out wide, just this cross, and I think this is very positive from Vargas. Has that composure, gets the head down of Cascante, decides to go himself, and there's that cross, and defenders, you can see Buana's at the back stick, unmarked. Valentini's come in to go with Bruin, and Antonella, he's trying to scramble to try and protect that far post.
They're anticipating more of a direct cross, you believe?
Anticipating that, you're thinking just the way that Vargas is shaping up, the body shape of the defender with Cascante, you're expecting a certain type of cross, so the deflection, you're having to react, but it's credit to Buwana because he's on at that back stick, and Valentini's tucked in that the Timbers defense didn't recover enough.
Villafania intercepts. Portland on the move through Valeri. Valentin. 2 up top, Paredes and Milano not used. Recycle through the back through Mabiala. Valeri clipped from behind. Alex Roldan, will this be our first card of the evening? It will. Valeri goes down. 36th minute, Alex Roldan receives a yellow card, scraping the back of Valeri's right leg.
Roldan offering an apologetic handshake to allow Valeri to come up. Valeri wasn't having it. As that ball comes in. Roldan just a little over eager. It's that dragging left foot just coming through the back of Valeri.
Game prior to this, we'll wait for Valeri before I tell you about a couple red cards I saw prior to this match. Valeri, another great ball, sent in, loose ball. Foul on Portland. Mariscal saw something, possibly on Mabiala. Big man up front. Ryan Meredith takes immediately. 2 red cards in the match previous, and Sporting KC in Houston. Romel Kyoto, a red card for a straight leg. I mean, cleats up, tough call, and what a game wouldn't be without Roger Espinoza not getting his second yellow. He finished 10v10, 4-1 win for Sporting KC. As a number of MLS squads are down here in Tucson. Beautiful fields, beautiful weather. Why not bring your MLS squad down south to prepare for the season?
You think about those red cards, and these players will carry a maybe the feel of redemption for all the times that they do see one another, whether it's preseason or for some teams, you know, in prior years seeing one another 3 times in a season, and so you're getting an awful lot of one another. And so if a tackle goes in at some point and you're on the receiving end, you just log that and you think, wait, I'll have my chance because I know I'll come up against you today. And not to say that's happened, but there has been chippiness in this preseason, and you just wonder if that's a carryover from prior occasions and prior coming together.
Those 2 teams are closer to starting play also.
Yeah.
They start CCL next week, so this tonight was Houston and Kansas City's kind of final tune-up before their season really starts. They've been in preseason a little longer. It's been pretty cordial and tame tonight, as you'd hope in the preseason.
Sure, and then to your point, Ross, you can also remember this in May and April, May, and June at Providence Park, or what their Children's Mercy Park when Houston comes to town. Cuts the corner. Is it a PK? It is a PK. Brought down. Delem says it was outside the box. It wasn't. Referee Marischkel calls a PK.
Well, he's certainly not arguing Dilem about there being a foul. He's arguing where the spot is. That initial contact, it's close. Now Andy Polo, he continues his run into the box, but you need to look at that initial contact. When I saw it initially, I thought that Dilem may have an argument slightly outside of the box. There definitely is contact. It's a nice run from Polo.
There's video review down here as well, we should say, in Tucson, so they can look at this. It looked like initial contact maybe just outside.
The line slightly is inside, correct? So it did look, and maybe there is a conversation here. Fotis Pazakos is the video assistant referee, and Marischkel might be having a conversation as we speak. We'll see another replay.
Just look, when Andy Polo goes beyond, watch the right foot of Jody Dilem. Now he's putting his body in. Now when it comes across, it's his left foot actually catching the right foot of Andy Polo. And that is inside. Now Andy Polo, he continues his run and he falls inside, but that is enough that it's outside of the box that it should be a free kick.
And Jonathan Campbell saying that to referee Marischkel. How about have a conversation? Can we look at this? And Marischkel saying it's my call, and the call stands. Diego Valeri up to take this on Brian Meredith here in the 40th minute to knot this match at 1. Whistle blown. Valeri steps back of the net. 1-1. Meredith goes the right way to his left, but Valeri's class gets it by him, and it's 1-1 in the 40th.
As well to keep his concentration, Valeri. Just with the Sounders players getting around the referee, there's a little bit extra time for Valeri to think about his spot kick.
Well, Sounders have to regroup, whether that was on the line, outside the line. Regardless, Polo went to the touch line and got behind Dilem.
And big Andy Polo, I think a big year for him. I mean, he's a Peruvian national team player, was at the World Cup with Peru, 1 goal and 2 assists last year. That might under kind of portray his total impact. Still, the Timbers looking for a little more production.
I think that's exactly what you want to see from him as well. Get faced up to defenders and get into that space in behind. He gets that head down, and we've seen it from him a few times, but not with enough consistency. You want to see him taking over matches, running at defenders.
Blanco can't retrieve it. Another ball looking for Wingo, too far. Portland looking to take advantage. Too far for Blanco. Polo and Paredes, to me, you guys correct me, you're the Portland guys, but Polo just didn't seem to seal himself. Appearances, 18 starts. He didn't say, I'm the guy, I'm in the 11 every single match.
By the end of the year, he was starting on that right wing, and when you go away for the World Cup, that's going to kind of disjoint the season. Paredes started 13 of the first 14 and then had just 5 in the last 20. So for him, it's a guy who, kind of like you were talking about Alex Roldan. It's
sure.
A little more extreme with Roldan than Paredes, but he was the first half of the year.
Spencer, he wants to play out of trouble. We saw it against Houston Dynamo in the Sounders last match, that they're willing to play in the back half and try and work their way out. And the Timbers, it was a good press from them as well. But that slip pass, that ball just going in between defenders, I think the Seattle Sounders, they've done a nice job of that the first half, finding little gaps and getting the runners into those spaces.
Anything but a stale first half. 1-1 here in the 43rd at halftime. We'll set our mics down. We'll let you go get some refreshments and regroup. We'll be back to start the second half. Jake will have the second half for you. Sounders control right before halftime. Gio up, walking in his technical area. Brian on his seat, yelling from his seat, telling his coaches what he'd like to see different. Roldan uses Ship. Leyva, pardon me, Vargas. Ship now finds an overlapping McCrary. Too heavy for Buana. It's happened a couple times for Seattle in the final third, as Schmetzer's hand goes in his head. His head goes in his hand, I should say, in the 44th minute.
I think for the managers, you want to see that the ideas are there. And so for preseason, they always, of course, talk about the health of the team and the fitness. They want to see that progress and develop. But also the ideas, and recognizing at this stage, they're not always going to come off. These guys, you have to remember, having tough training sessions. It's not as though they're really taking their foot off the pedal a day before to do the to go through the proper procedures of preparing, to making sure the body is full tilt. Some of these guys will be carrying knocks, soreness in their legs on both teams, and so you can understand when passes don't quite come off.
Paredes, Valentin, Milano, little bit of space, nice movement by Milano. Can't find Paredes, knocked out of bounds, cleared out of the way by Seattle, but Milano feels it, to say the least.
Sharpness by him. This ball in, you look how he readjusts Milano, and then he's trying to readjust his body, and they're all sharp, clean touches. There's an idea in his mind, doesn't quite come off, but he makes something, almost something out of nothing.
We'll have 1 minute of stoppage time. Portland probing once again. And if DeLem's not there, Milano's heading home. The second Portland goal in the 45th.
And the good runs by Milano as well. He has spotted the space. He knows where to get into. He knows who's on the ball, and they're capable of a certain delivery. And it almost comes off.
I want to tell you that Portland should go about 60 minutes with this group, approximately. The Sounders, 75 minutes, minus 1 or 2 players. Jake will have that for you at the start of the second half. Corner kicks brought in. Knotted down and out by Portland. Goal kick, Brian Meredith.
Just a bit too high, a bit too heavy for Cascante. Let's peel off his defender. Nothing to trouble Meredith, though.
Into stoppage time. 1 minute will be added as Brian Meredith says we won't play out of the back this time. Let's get to halftime 1-1. Knock it forward. Starters for Seattle should see a little more time, or should see time on Saturday versus FC Dallas. Again, 9 a.m. Pacific, right here at the Keynote Sports Complex. Leyva from Ship, knocked around by Guzman, who's been in everybody's pocket this first half.
Came on strong the second half of the year, the final third of the year. I thought David Guzman, when Timbers just pairing with Diego Chara, going to that 4-2-3-1. Distinctive roles between him and Diego Chara, but Guzman recognizing more and more how much the team needed his engine in the midfield. They needed his bite to pair with Chara, and needed his ability on the ball.
Searching ball from Roldan to Ship. Ship finds Vargas. Vargas, top of the box, blasts it wide right. Sounders' last opportunity before the halftime whistle.
Well, he's finding that space, Vargas, and Villafranca, he gets caught up the pitch. He gets caught going forward, and then his recovery run isn't in time, and Ship, he does a good job just putting that ball right into the path of Vargas, who can't steady himself. Almost a little bit too eager, a little bit too excited. Cascante's maybe doing just enough to get into the mind of the youngster. Never on balance to get the strike away.
Halftime's upon us. That's Ross, Jake, myself, Matt Johnson. We will be back. Good first half. You saw the crowd. Great crowd here tonight in Tucson, Arizona. It's 1-1 at halftime. We'll be back after this.
Welcome back to Tucson, Arizona. Halftime at the Mobile Mini Sun Cup. The Portland Timbers and Seattle Sounders tied at 1. I'm Jake Sivan alongside Ross Smith and Matt Johnson. A couple minutes away from the beginning of the second half. Let's take a look back at the first half. The Portland Timbers and Seattle Sounders each getting on the board. Started in the 33rd minute. Huntwala Blanco.
Well, for Vargas here, just putting the cross in. Nice and positive from him. He's going at Cascante, gets his little bit of space, and a fortunate deflection. That takes it onto the back stick, but Buwana doesn't do well. Controls that ball coming down out of the sky, sends it into the back of the net.
Just about 5 minutes later, the Timbers earn a penalty.
I thought this was a little harsh on the center back Telem, just where that contact is being made. Andy Polo felt it was inside the area, so did the referee, and Valeri, he steps up, and doesn't he take it nicely? Just opens up his foot, enough pace and enough power to take it into the back stanchion.
Brian Meredith guessed correctly. However, the penalty perfectly placed from Diego Valeri, so it's 1-1 at halftime. As always, in the preseason, we expect a lot of changes throughout this second half. We'll get to see even more of Seattle's young group. They signed 8 players from their U17s to their USL team over the past year. That team, now known as Tacoma Defiance, used to be called Sounders 2, and we expect to see a handful, even more of those guys in the second half. For the Timbers, we expect the starters to go for about 15 more minutes until the 60th minute or so. Guys like Christian Paredes and David Guzman and Julio Cascante. From there, a whole line change, so to speak. Here are the Sounders starters coming out, led by their goalkeeper, Brian Meredith, who had a little bit to do in the first half. Ross, I know you were impressed with the sharpness, the urgency from both teams in the first half of this.
Yeah, well, for teams coming into preseason, sometimes they can feel, I can go through the motions here, and maybe more so towards the senior players, where youngsters always have something to prove to the managers. But you saw committed effort from both sides. The Portland Timbers impressed with the sharpness, but I think the Portland Timbers will say themselves impressed with the youngsters from Seattle Sounders, Matt, the energy from them, and obviously the ideas that they have. There certainly was a plan in place and a style that the Sounders wanted to play in.
No, I think you're right on. Not only proving yourself, but it is Portland and Seattle, and it doesn't matter if you're 15, 18, or 25 years old. You know what that means. It's a proving ground in the Northwest, but I think your point is great, Ross. There's some guys out here that are seeing, hey, my job's on the line. McCrary with other trialists coming in, he's doing what he can. DeLem, he's got to do well, or else Gustav, he'll just be down the pecking order. This is a great showing by guys that have to prove to not only Gio and Brian that they belong on this pitch.
Alejandro Mariscala is our referee today. He hands the ball to Will Bruin. Checks with the benches. Sets his watch and gets us underway, the second half of a preseason match between the Portland Timbers and the Seattle Sounders. No changes from either team at halftime. The starting groups stayed. For the Timbers, a more experienced starting group than Seattle, who rested what you'd consider kind of at this point to be their probable starting 11. They will play on Saturday, and Seattle's next match, final match here in Tucson against Dallas.
Yeah, Brian wants to get that rhythm of Saturday, obviously Saturday against Dallas, and then another Saturday in San Jose.
Bruin getting it over to Ship. Valentine on his back. Ship keeps his feet. Still has it. Strong tackle from Guzman, and equally as strong from Ship. Finally, the Timbers come away with it. Can they break? Valeri forward towards Milano. It was broken up by Roldan.
I thought Ship did well. Equally Valentine, but for a moment there, I thought Valentine was getting himself in a little trouble with Ship, almost using too much of his body to try and get the ball. Whereas Ship, honest enough, stayed on his feet, tried to keep the ball in possession. Just before that, Will Bruin using his body to back into Paredes, almost taking an elbow. Paredes turning to the referee. The referee more or less saying you need to be stronger than that, and Paredes then trying to have a bite on Bruin. But that physicality with Bruin putting himself about, giving something for the center backs of the Timbers to worry about.
Here's Bruin leaving for Buwana. Wide to Ship, and Ship sails that cross over everybody. Wingo will run it down. Roldan on the ground. Vargas, the youngster, he couldn't get to it, and it's a goal kick.
It's a good idea, and again, it's those spaces in between the center back and the full backs that the Sounders are trying to get into. And for Ship as well, But for him, he was always looking to get on the ball, find technician. He can twist in and out. He can have a clever way to go about where in his mind he can see the game differently and he can look after the ball well.
Well, I was ready to gush about Leyva tonight, but it's Vargas as one of the youngsters who's impressing me. On the right-hand side, the 18-year-old joined the academy in 16, and he looks the part.
An impressive group, those U17s that won the national championship this year. Just reading about them in preparation for this game certainly made me look forward to seeing them today. They signed 8 players to the Tacoma Defiance, a team that won that U17 national championship. They destroyed Atlanta in the final 5-1. Some of the goal scoring numbers for some of these guys is outrageous. Vargas,
bizarre,
25 goals and 31 assists.
Yeah.
Unreal. McCrary couldn't keep that in play.
Just missed a moment there, McCrary. Will Bruin positioned himself nicely between Mabiala and Cascante. Was looking for that slip pass.
Leyva, he's just 15, finds Wingo coming forward. Wingo running it via Fania. Still Henry Wingo. Leaves it for Alex Roldan. Wingo again. Gets around via Fania well. Wingo to the byline, sending it across. Buana heading it down and out for a corner.
Well, Wingo, he's shaped up with confidence. And what I mean by that, the way that he gets squared toward Villafania, and he had one thing in mind, just to go at Villafania, and he knocks it one side, runs the other, and then stands the ball up to the far post. Buana got a goal from a similar position, going the other way in the first half. Can't get the right connection on the ball, almost trying to go back across goal with his header this time.
Buana will take this corner, and it's easy for Jeff Adanella to handle. He wants to go quick. Polo, he's got speed and he's showing it, getting around Vargas, the youngster. A professional foul, as they used to call it, now a tactical foul, right? And it's a yellow clearly for the 18-year-old Marlon Vargas.
Well, he felt he had to. Polo, he saw what he was up against, just knocked the ball, and he was just going to use his speed, and by then Vargas, he was dead in the water. Thought he'd just hold on to him when he could, but this is a good break. We saw this time and again from the Timbers last year. As soon as the ball gets into the hands of Atanella, they're looking to go. And Polo, he's very efficient with his running, but Vargas decides that that's far enough for you, Polo.
Poor angle by Vargas to start, but Brian Schmetzer will like the little tackle at the end. That's kind of Brian Schmetzer ball. Stop when you can.
Well, Polo's gonna, to be fair to Marlon Vargas, he's gonna sprint past, what, 95% of the players in MLS in a situation like that. So his only goal of the year was similar. It was against the Columbus Crew, and he came blazing down this right side. Made an 80, 90-yard run that ended up kind of with an awkward karate kick finish into an open net.
It's quite acrobatic. I heard many people say that's one of the better goals that they saw from a Portland Timber last season.
At least until the playoffs, maybe. And there were some good ones.
That right there has been the strength of Leyva in the matches. The match I've seen and the scrimmages I've seen is the open ball. He just has been pinpoint with the ball, and we haven't seen that tonight from the young man.
He's the youngest player on the field, 15 years old, signed to the Tacoma Defiance. Second youngest player ever to appear in USL. Impressive to see a guy like that out here with Diego Valeri, David Guzman, Andy Polo, and the such. Here is Polo. Defended well by Hanwala Buana.
And McCrary as well. McCrary, he split the difference because he had 2 players to worry about when Valeri is on the ball. And for that, as a defender, the fullback, you have to tuck in. You have to make sure that you stop the immediate threat. Got the header, and then he was able to rely on Buana getting back and doing his defensive responsibilities.
Bruin does well to turn. Wide to Buana, who has space. Still Buana. A couple step overs, and Adanella goes down to make the save.
You know, the outside Buwana and Wingo, this just screams that they had a talking to by Brian Schmetzer. Wingo immediately twice now has gone on the right back, and Buwana has been told, I would think, that I want you to go at him. I don't care what happens, just go at him and show that you can take a man one-on-one.
And Valentin there just affording the space, though. He's backing up. He's obviously worrying about the attacker running straight at him, obviously worried about being in the area, dangling a leg. It's very positive from Buwana.
Pro's pro and Valentin.
Signed an extension this offseason. Eric Valentin will stay in Portland for a few more years.
Got married. He's got to be a happy guy.
He's married. Yes, he was.
I see the pictures. Twitter and all that stuff you young kids do.
He started a podcast with Jeff Adinella this preseason. Did Eric Valentin? It's been a big couple months for him.
Busy boy.
I also started an MLS Cup, you know, no big deal. Guzman trying to turn around Leyva, and the 15-year-old is called for the foul. Seattle is preparing their first substitution. Asriel Gonzalez getting ready to come. Looks like they'll wait until after the free kick. Gonzalez is standing with the fourth official.
Brian Schmetzer off. Set piece defending huge for Brian in the offseason.
Valeri floats it in. It got to Cascante. Polo, Blanco, Paredes are appealing, and it's finally given. It was a very decision from Alejandro Mariscal. It is a handball, and it is the second penalty kick of the match for the Portland Timbers.
Little doubt in the referee's minds.
I think it's clear.
Just when this ball comes in. See that go up, and it is clear. And I don't quite know.
I want to say Delem.
What Delem is thinking.
Yeah.
Delem going up, he's there, he's going to go win the ball, but it's almost as though he's shielding his head from it, and the referee is right to point to the spot.
We see it at all levels, Ross. I don't understand defenders that go up with their arms. Who am I to speak? Never getting to a high level, but arms go up, things happen. Usually they're bad for the defender.
Well, they need to go up at a certain level, don't they, to protect yourself and keep that space in, so no heads are coming in to collide with your own. But to put it up above your head and put it towards the ball as well, the way Delem did, it's an easy decision for the referee.
Alejandro Mariscal, the referee's taking his time. He briefly put his finger to his ear, which would indicate a check with his video assistant referee, Fotis Bazakos.
Did he do that in the first PK? I didn't see him do that for the first PK.
There was far less time in the first PK. I mean, everything is checked, right? So in the video review room, they were checking that first penalty kick decision. It was also Delem who was whistled for the foul on that one. But there certainly was not a lengthy delay before it, as there is right now. So maybe a thought that it was a natural position, the arm from Delem.
Question, natural, unnatural, deliberate, or not, but I think as soon as you put your arm above your head the way Delem did, you're running the risk and you're making contact with the ball.
And it's going towards goal.
Then it has to be intentional, it has to be given a penalty.
Which way does Meredith go?
Well, are they even able to take the penalty? That's the question right now.
You also have to wonder, is it just about the handball, the arm? I think you're wondering as well, is the referee looking at a foul perhaps beforehand? Is there a foul? Is there a push that's happening in the box, in the area that is clear and obvious that the referee can rule out the penalty?
Well, he's going to take a look. Under review, the decision to give the penalty as of now. Here's another look.
Just looking at number 21, Jody Delem. As he's coming across, that left arm coming across. Now it comes off the head of Cascante, then onto the arm. So what you're saying is that's not enough time for Delem to be able to readjust, and so it's not deliberate. But for me, as soon as you put your arm to that height above your head, then you're running the risk and you're making your body bigger, and it's a penalty. So if that's exactly what the referee is looking at, and it is the handball decision, it has to be a penalty.
And you mentioned it, maybe there was a foul, maybe it was a Guzman on McCrary foul, or but again, prior to that, it was clean in the box. Another great ball in. And to me, Ross, to your point, Delem's arm is just in an unnatural position. There you go, Jake.
We wait for the decision from Alejandro Mariscal. He's going to explain it first to Diego Valeri, and he's going to wave off the penalty.
Well, I just wonder if the referee has seen it as a foul going into it, because for me, it's definitely a handball situation.
Actually, it's offside. So we're given, we have, not only is there VAR on the field, the same communication that we get during the regular season, we're getting here in preseason in Tucson. Julio Cascante judged to be offside when the free kick was taken. Makes a lot more sense.
Makes more sense. It's one we certainly would need to see again from the angle we're seeing. Not privy to what the offside line is. So we see it, that ball coming in. Now, the initial one with Julio Cascante.
Milano's not involved in the play.
But Milano's not involved in the play, so it has to be. It has to be Julio Cascante is what you're looking for, because he's the player that makes the contact on the ball. Milano does drift into an offside position, but he's inactive. He's not active into the play.
And that was the call, was that Julio Cascante was offside. That's what has been communicated to us.
Bob, see if you can get that
down the left side. It comes via Fania with Milano in the middle, and it's too far for Lucas Milano. Valeri keeps it in play for the Timbers.
Yes, please.
Blanco. Seattle made a sub, as you saw, Azriel Gonzalez in the match. The Timbers with Jordan McCrary. David Guzman whistled for a foul. Let's go back to the offside.
Well, from the moment the ball is hit, you're just looking at number 18, Julio Cascante. And that, for me, it looks so tight. Now, is this clear and obvious? So when that ball is hit, it's slight. It's maybe so slight. And so
it's an arm.
The parameters are clear and obvious. Now, the arm can't be offside because it's any part of the body that can score a goal. And so that, for me, it's not definitive. I don't think that's the right decision. I think that's very harsh to turn that over for it to be clear and obvious. It's not clear and obviously offside.
Well, here's the line change from the Portland Timbers. 11 in and 11 out. Diego Valeri has the goal today. The starters for the Timbers leave with the score tied. Coming into the match in a similar 4-2-3-1 as the starters are Steve Clark in goal. As the Timbers fans that are here give a nice applause for the starters that left and the guys coming in. It's Steve Clark in goal. It's Roy Miller at right back, Bill Tuiloma and Claude Diona, the center backs, Marco Farfan, the left back, Diego Chara and Andres Flores in the defensive midfield, Devon Asprilla on the right wing, Tomas Konechny on the left wing, Marvin Luria in the middle, and Jeremy Ibobisi starting up top.
I think a lot of excitement for Marvin Luria, just to see what he's able to produce, and just watching him at training. You watched him last year, the T2, and then you can look at the US Open Cup for the Timbers against San Jose. He's at a different level. What stands out to you, he's full of the game, and he's always looking to get on the ball. He's got great quality with his lovely left foot. So to see what impact he can have in this game and linking up with Jeremy Ibobisi.
He was capped by Costa Rica for the first time in their game against the US. He started that match. He's 21 years old, was on loan from Saprissa to T2 last year, had 6 goals and 7 assists. Signed to the first team in the offseason along with Renzo Zambrano from T2. A guy that both players that the Timbers I know are excited about. And Luria we're getting to see tonight.
Luria showing off his first cap to Jeremy Ibobisi, who can say, well, here's my first cap as well. What do you think of this one for the US? Good strong challenge from Asprilla coming in.
A couple 21-year-olds making their national team debuts in the most recent international friendlies. David Guzman was with Costa Rica, of course, as well. Roldan comes around Luria. Ship out wide and too far for Azriel Gonzalez.
They are willing to be brave on the ball, the Sounders, though, Matt. Trying to work themselves out. The final pass didn't come through.
Yeah, last 2 times they had possession, it was either the newcomers for Portland just getting under, under the game here, just got onto the pitch. Nice some 1-2s. I've been watching Leyva, who's kind of going back to the back line and directing traffic a little deeper. But again, not out of place, many of these Sounders.
Luria couldn't handle that.
Just wondering if Alex Roldan's going to get stuck in one more time before the 75th. He's on 1 yellow. He had another foul. His earlier yellow in the 36 on Valeri. And he's got that in his game.
Was the players, they'll be looking up towards that clock, and for the Seattle Sounders expecting to be turned out, they'll be thinking, right, can I get another moment in? And whatever that moment may be, a tackle, a nice pass that slipped through, a strike towards goal, whatever it may be, but you want to get that lasting impression in a final moment before your time comes.
Quick bit of lineup housekeeping. As you can see, it's Marco Farfan at right back, Roy Miller at left back. You have 2 natural left-footed guys there in Farfan and Miller.
Sounders are going to bring on a couple more 17-year-olds and another 16-year-old in the 75th. Not quite the 11 that Portland did, but give it up to Jake Zivin to figure it all out.
Hey, I'll say this, if you're a Sounders fan, the Tacoma Defiance, as they're now known, used to be S2, is going to me, would be a must-watch this year. It's a group of your best and youngest, former academy players. They're going to be way younger than everybody they play against, and they might struggle in the results. But if nothing else, it'll be fun to watch. Here's Buana, top of the box. Poked away by Farfan and then swept to midfield by Dielna. Flicked on by Ibobasi. Oh, Esprit is turning on the Jets. Can he get there before Ship? Yes, he can. Here's Marvin Luria. Luria hitting it from distance. It's blocked by Campbell. Flores knocking it down to Chara.
Yeah, president of soccer and GM Garth Lagerwey, he didn't guarantee a playoff spot, but he said, listen, this...
Konechny towards Ibobasi, dealt with by Campbell.
The Defiants are going to win games. Last year it was youngsters versus grown men, and it's going to be something you'll want to watch down in the...
Gets it poked away. Roy Miller coming back from the Achilles injury. He's a guest player, technically here in Tucson with the Timbers. Of course, tore his Achilles tendon the day before, the final moment of training before their second leg loss to Houston in the 2017 playoffs. Would have started that match at center back. If you remember, Timbers were just decimated by injuries by that time.
He was having himself a very good season. One of the most consistent defenders for the Timbers that year.
Missed all of last year. Did come back and played a few matches with T2 last year. And has been with the Timbers this preseason.
Just a missed touch from Ibobasi, but of course Ibobasi would have been watching Milano in the first half. Would have been seeing what he's been doing in preseason, scoring his 3 goals. And so all of a sudden, a little bit of extra pressure for Ibobasi to come in his mind after what he put on the second half of the season, the final third of the season. He would have been thinking, right, if there's no other signings coming in, brought into the striker position, I need to be the main man. Well, Milano then is starting to compete and starting to move up the ranks in that position.
Espria coming forward, slides it to Luria, leaves it to Espria. Espria in the box. He tries a shot from a narrow angle, and he couldn't put it on the frame.
And to your point, Ross, that Gio's got to be loving that. Milano shows up and with that kind of performance in the first half, that puts a pressure on anybody who wants his minutes. And he can say, how do I move Milano? Milano had a heck of a first half. What do you want from me? That guy's producing. Produce for me.
You keep your spot, and for preseason, it's positions there to be won. You can imagine for both managers, for Gio, for Brian Schmetzer, in their mind, there's certain guys who you can bet the house on that they're going to be starting. But then there's other positions where you think, right, well, let me see what other players are going to show me in preseason, and not just a one-off, a day in, day out. How are they with the grind that comes with preseason? Do they have the character to be able to stick things out?
You talked to Brian earlier, and he always just brings up pro sports. It's pro sports. There's someone to take your spot. You know, produce, or there's someone to take your spot, and that's the hammer. And I love Milano's game earlier on. I mean, the move he played on top of the box looked like a
players around, so they had to get up to speed, not this coddled way that you tend to associate with modern day players. And so certainly from both managers, that sense of youngsters coming in now, prove something to me right away.
Brian Schmetzer can relate to some of these 16, 17-year-olds. He was 18 when he joined the Seattle Sounders out of high school.
And he got beat up by Bruce Rioch, of all players. He would tell you the story. His first day, Bruce Rioch knocks him down and says, "I'm not helping you up. I'm not. What are you looking at me for, son? I'm not helping you up." Same thing. And Will Bruins, you just mentioned 4 guys that the coaches can depend on and trust. You know, you mentioned those 4 guys, and a guy like Will Bruin knows that Rui Diaz is the #1, and he's still got to put in the time and the effort and the minutes.
Here's Roy Miller. Now Marco Farfan. Thought about hitting it and then tried to play it in. It was broken up.
I've been watching Bawana a couple different times defend, and he's coming back. He's clogging up the middle, and that's a role I've never seen him play. Pretty impressed with that kid from Ballard High School in UW.
He has the goal for Seattle today, back in the 33rd minute. It was equalized by Diego Valeri from the spot in the 40th. Konechny turns, Asprilla wants it. Instead, he goes behind Andres Flores. It ends up with Marco Farfan. Now Asprilla gets it. Behind Konechny. Here's Buana.
Tomas Konechny, he's another player to keep your eye on. I think last year didn't have a whole lot of chances. You think about Minnesota away in the first half, it was a chance for him, but the game didn't go the Timbers' way in general for all players. And so for him, it's all about this season now, preseason, getting some time under him.
Roldan hits it well, but it's right at Steve Clark. That was Konechny's only start of the season in Minnesota. Left at halftime, was subbed out. Dangerous free kick coming from Seattle. Ship draws the foul, and a chance to challenge Steve Clark.
The Ship getting on the ball. Luria, it's more a slip from maybe Ship. The referee's in a good position, just coming into your screen late. I think it's a poor decision, a wrong decision.
Steve Clark setting his wall. Clark brought back in the offseason. Was with the Timbers starting October 17th of 2018. Started 6 of the last 8 matches of the regular season. As Jeff Adenella was dealing with some injuries. Looks like it's going to be Henry Wingo. Here is Wingo, got it up and off the wall and down and out for a corner.
He's been a confident man this game, I would say, with Wingo. He's releasing position from the right back area, and he's just come onto the free kick as well. He's taking it well, but the wall has done its job.
He's a 23-year-old, now in his 3rd season with Seattle, a homegrown. Buana, he's been confident today. Dielna, strong clearance. Asprilla through the back of McCrary. Asprilla will be whistled for the foul, just kind of undercut him.
I thought Asprilla had position on him, and McCrary kind of mistimed the header. Asprilla's saying, look at Asprilla's like, what do you want from me?
Alejandro Mariscal disagrees. 8 subs coming for Seattle. Or is it 9? I think it's going to be 9. 9 players coming in for Seattle. We'll see who the lone one is to stay. Azriel Gonzalez certainly will stay, having come on in this second half. There'll be one other. We think it'll be Danny Leyva who will stay on. Preseason line changes, always a joy of Tucson. It is Leyva who remains on with the new 9 players for Seattle.
Azriel Gonzalez has switched to the left, Jake. That puts Ray Serrano up on the right-hand side.
So Trey Muse comes in goal. Nuhu at left back, Alex Berkholz, Josh Atencio, the center backs, Kyle Van Alstine, who is a guest player, a Tucson native, plays for FC Tucson. He's the right back. There's Nuhu, a person who will certainly be familiar to Timbers supporters and obviously Sounders supporters. The most experienced of the players in the match right now for Seattle. The 2 holding midfielders, Danny Leyva, 15-year-old who stays on, and Joel Ridestrand, a second-round draft pick unsigned as of now. Ray Serrano, as Matt mentioned, on the right wing, Danny Robles in the middle, Azriel Gonzalez on the left wing, and Alec Diaz, the 17-year-old up top. So the attack, you've got 17, 16, 17, 17 years old for Seattle, a 15-year-old in the midfield, a 17-year-old center back, 19-year-old goalkeeper. It is a young Sounders group on the field right now.
And a set piece taken by Nuhu, which I've never seen.
It's not a bad ball to the back post from Nuhu, and Miller heads it out for, is it a corner? It is. Snuck out on the end line side of the flag.
Terrific ball from Nuhu. Great shape going to the far post, but Miller, he's defended that very well.
The oldster, as you can see, is the captain for the last 15 minutes.
He's only 21 years old himself.
The old man, 21.
The old man on the field, 47 games in MLS. That is far more than everybody combined. In fact, he's the only player on the field for Seattle right now that has appeared in an MLS match.
The referee just having a conversation with both sets of players. Stopping play just to make sure they know not too much grappling and picking going on.
The corner in, headed away by Diego Chara at the near post.
It's a player on the ball, Dielna. I think Timbers fans will be looking forward to seeing him play. Coming across from New England Revolution, just to see what he can offer in balance in the center back position. A nice left foot from him. Off and on at New England Revolution would describe his performances.
Spria through for Luria, a little too much. He was able to get there and keep it in play. The offside flag comes up in the end. And getting back to Claude Dielna, Timbers traded for his rights to New England in the offseason, $100,000 in general allocation money. Then they signed him. He was unsigned by New England. They declined his option so they could renegotiate. Played 17 matches with New England last year. He played 17 in the first 21, then was nowhere to be found for the last 13. That was relatively common. Oh, here's Luria. That's a foul.
Brad Friedel taking over.
Yeah, and that happened with multiple players in the middle of the season, throughout the season with New England, where Brad Friedel, for whatever reason, decided to kind of keep them away, and Dielna was one of those guys.
Isn't that interesting, Ross? I mean, there are opportunities for guys that are sitting on the bench when a new coach comes in, but bam, all of a sudden, I want to say frozen out, but I'm not at every training. You never know what to think, but Friedel comes in and says, no, these are my guys. Happens all the time worldwide.
New manager coming in for a reason. You often think because the previous manager didn't work, and so they feel as though their ideas is the way to go forwards, and they need to get the right players in and the players on board.
Spria to Marvin Loria. Back to Spria. Can he turn? And Nuhu hits it about 80 yards out of the facility here.
That's to Scottsdale.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, what's south of Tucson?
It's a good combination play. Luria, he digs what is slightly ahead pass for Luria, but I think with Nuhu here, if that's the regular keeper, if that's Stefan Fry, he'd be having a word with Nuhu. Why are you giving away an easy corner kick? But then at the same time, Fry would be screaming for that ball back to want to be able to deal with it, put it out for a throw-in.
Konechny will take this corner. Flores is there with him as a short option. He sends it to the back post over the head of Dielna. Cleared all the way to Diego Chara. Back to Konechny. Switches it over to Dielna.
Certainly composed on the ball, Dielna. Doesn't mind accepting it, getting on it, looking for that pass. I always think if he's going to be the man beside Mabiala, which seems to be the conversation, right? Who's going to play beside Mabiala? You can understand that after the strong season the big center back had for the Timbers. But Dielna, he offers that ability on the ball, that cleanliness to be able to play out. Of course, we associated that with Liam Ridgewell before. So you couldn't quite say he's the direct replacement for him. I think Cascante and Tui Loma will have something to say about that. But he certainly offers that quality just to be able to play out fine players for the Timbers.
He's 31 years old, very experienced. He's French most of his career. Came in his native country of France. Also has played in England and Romania, Slovenia, and Greece. Well-traveled center back. Was a designated player for New England. Was the highest paid defender in the league at the beginning of last year. Here's Ray Serrano, the youngster, defended by Diego Chara, and Konechny coming over to help defend as well.
He did well enough initially, Serrano, to take away the recovery run from Chara.
That was impressive. But with Chara on your back, you got to get rid of it now.
Konechny coming down the left wing, sending it into the box, and Nuhu getting a touch. It's Asprilla.
Good idea from Konechny. He's just trying to match the ball to the run from Laria, just arriving late.
Konechny hitting it from distance. Oh, Tomas Konechny not far away from a stunning goal.
He has looked a different player in preseason to what we saw last year. And again, the advantage of having a preseason, having that comfort, and Konechny just here when he gets on the ball, he finds he's in space. He already had a look before he receives it. Nice touch out of his body, running onto it, and it doesn't miss by much. It's enough to worry the goalkeeper Muse.
Tomas Konechny is still just 20 years old. A very experienced youth international for Argentina. Played in the 2015 U17 World Cup, the 2017 U20 World Cup. Never seemed to really settle in his first half season in Portland. Came on loan last July 17th.
Just when I thought it was going to be a little bit of a lull, about 3-4 minutes ago, it just picked up once again. Konechny just got everybody off their chair there. That was impressive.
Here's Konechny. Ibobusi wants it down the middle. Konechny instead plays to his feet. Leaves for Loria, and it's defended well. Just sat up for Danny Leyva.
Ibobusi obviously disappointed with that layoff off camera. You can see with his body language, unhappy with himself. It's what he prided himself upon, just coming into the side last year, and his ability to link up with Valeri and Blanco, and not only the technical ability, but being sharp in the mind to understanding the movement that was coming underneath him.
Gonzalez in between Farfan and Asprilla, curling for the back post, top corner. It's out for a goal kick. Matt, this is the time when Brian Schmetzer told us in the past couple of matches, it's been kind of men against boys, and it is right now.
Sure.
But important minutes still for these 16, 17-year-olds.
Well, you talked about the goals scored. I mean, these guys aren't afraid to take from 22 to 28 yards out. Obviously, Gonzalez there, he feels it. So did Serrano, going right down the gut.
And another opportunity for a youngster. Steve Clark making the save, and it's put wide. It was Alec Diaz forcing the save, and he just couldn't put the follow-up back on frame.
I think Diego Chara has done a fine job in the end. As the ball goes in behind, it's worked lovely, and strike nice and solid. Clark makes the initial save, but Chara, he does enough there. Just when Diaz is coming in thinking he's going to have that final touch, where Clark's scrambling to get back to his feet, it's Chara's leg that comes across.
And a great learning lesson from Diaz that he was second to that second ball. It was Chara, the veteran. You know, he's always going to be in there. If Diaz just makes that one step after he takes that shot, maybe he pokes it beyond Clark.
Talk about goal scorers. You mentioned the ridiculous numbers for some of these young guys. Alec Diaz had 36 goals in 38 games in 2018 for the youth team.
I wrote back to Seattle. I said, how many goals did the U17 score?
Yeah, right.
1,050? He goes, let me check. I said, no, don't do it. I'll just go each guy at a time. You know,
they have multiple players in the 20s and 30s, don't they?
Well, when you win in 6-0, 6-1 every match, these things happen. But again, now prove it on the next level. Prove it at Tacoma Defiance. Prove it with the #1 squad here. Show Gonzalo Pineda and Preki and Brian Schmetzer that you could do it against Diego Chara and Clark and these veterans Portland has.
Diaz had 2 goals in 5 matches for what were then known as Sounders 2 last season when he was an academy player. Since signed with the team now known as Tacoma Defiance. He just turned 17 in December, so he's still a young 17. Miller to Loria, gets it back to Roy Miller. Miller sending it into the box, and Nuhu heading it only as far away as Konechny, who looked like a foul we're going to play on at the least. Leyva does well to spring Serrano. Has Diaz in the middle, he'll keep it himself. Serrano, a step over, and then the 31-year-old Claude Dielna takes it away from the 16-year-old Ray Serrano. Almost twice his age.
That they show up on the sports science. How many runs are you doing? And obviously to the naked eye of the managers, they understand who's big and brave. And you would have to say from the Sounders standpoint and the youngsters, they've been big and brave, showing for the ball and looking to show their abilities.
As both these teams continue with their preseason, the Sounders will wrap up their time in Tucson on Saturday, an early morning game, 9 a.m. Pacific time against Dallas.
Will you come and help me do that game, please? 9 a.m.
Is that an official invitation? I might still be asleep. Here's Asprilla trying to get around Nuhu. Still Dyrone Asprilla. We play on. Tons of time. Ibobasi taps it in. It's all legal, and it's 2-1 Portland. Jeremy Ibobasi late.
Well, the left back Nuhu is running over to have a word with the assistant referee. He's not happy. He feels as though he was fouled from Asprilla. I thought he had a case. But from the Timbers standpoint, just working the ball well. And Asprilla, he had an initial chance prior to this to take the shot on first. Goes beyond Nuhu and then squares it across to Ibobasi, who just parks himself right in the middle of the goal. There, that across. Is there contact from Asprilla as he tries to jump around the backside of Nuhu? But he did enough to clip him. The referee could cause a foul. Could call a foul, but Ibobasi, he tucks it away nicely.
That's the first goal of the preseason for Jeremy Ibobasi, who was, of course, with the U.S. national team, at least for the beginning part of the Timbers preseason.
I think the foul happened just prior to that. I thought Nuhu stood him up, and they played physical, and you got to play on. I thought there was one bit of contact that the referee could look at.
They probably are, certainly. Quick check from Alejandro Mariscal and his video assistant referee Fotis Bizakos. The goal is good. The Timbers lead at 2-1.
Well, Nuhu, he was just trying to use his position and his strength to hold off Asprilla.
Asprilla's a big boy. They might have looked on offside also. That was very close, but fair call in the end.
You have to look at Tomas Konechny. I believe it was his ball getting to the end line and putting it across. Worked it very well.
Andres Flores taking down Danny Robles, and Flores shown a yellow card. Third one of this match. First to a Timbers player.
You think both coaches are happy with what they got out of this?
I would have to say yes. I would have to say both coaches will both come away, though, saying that I have things that I know we can work on and we need to work on. But again, you go back to, what do I want to get out of this? I want all my players to be healthy when they come away. I want the fitness to progress, and I want to see some ideas. And for both managers, they can tick those areas.
Ridestrand sends it in. The header is looped into the area and controlled by Steve Clark.
Yeah, healthy in beginning of March.
Still a few weeks away as both teams continue to build. We asked Brian Schmetzer about this preseason and him taking on preseason perhaps differently, given that Sounders have been given the reputation of starting slow, and I mean it shows in the record as well. the slow starters, and then the second half of the season they kick on, and he said we've been evaluating it, we've been looking at it, and I think it does help in a way that this year we had a longer off season. And you have to look at it that we have players who are healthy as well. Last year we were hit with the injury bug and it really hurt us, and we did have a slow start. But once we started getting a few names back, and also the signing of Raul Ruiz-Diaz mid-season made a big difference. They were always good defensively last year, but in front of goal they lacked. And so that healthy Bill, he said, is so important, and the rest that we've had in the off-season could serve us well.
Alec Diaz was offside there. Looked like he was hoping for at least, I think, a free kick. Here's Konechny. He's been pretty active since he's been in the match. Chara trying to go 1-on-3, taken away momentarily. Flores gets it back for the Timbers. Big ball from Clark looking for Loria. Oh, he just well to chest it over to Flores, though. Ridestrand was there for Seattle. There's Leyva. Miller tried to pick out Konechny. Couldn't deal with the high bounce.
It was a good ball for Miller.
The Timbers' next match will be on Saturday against the New York Red Bulls, 6 o'clock Pacific time. They have 2 more matches in Tucson. I mentioned Seattle's final match here is on Saturday. They'll then play Phoenix Rising a week from tonight, and then they'll end it with Real Salt Lake on the 23rd. The Sounders go back home for the rest of their preseason. They'll play a game in San Jose, their final one. They leave Tucson on Saturday.
Nico Ladero's first club, Nacional, comes next
Uruguayan
Wednesday.
Team.
Yeah, pretty fun at CenturyLink Field, 7:30 next Wednesday, and then, like you said, San Jose, and that'll be the number ones going 90. You would think most of the number ones will go 75 minutes on Saturday. So it's getting down to it.
It's getting close, yeah. 2.5 weeks until opening day. The Timbers starts on the road against Colorado. They'll play 12 straight on the road as the renovations continue at Providence Park.
I want to ask you, do you think this long preseason, Costa Rican here, might be a setup, Ross, to get the guys used to traveling? You know, 12 on the road's pretty significant.
I don't think it has the plan to groom them so they're used to being into that groove. If that's what you're suggesting, yes. There, this long preseason, get used to being out on the road. I think the players would be first to say I'd rather be home with the families, but because of the construction and a chance to get away as a team to get to comfortable weather, Costa Rica, nice area, nice facilities, and to be here with nice facilities. I think that's the initial plan, but you could look at it that way as well. They're going to be getting used to being on the roads and being around one another for quite a long time.
Well, that's it here from Tucson. The Portland Timbers defeat the Seattle Sounders 2-1, a match that saw each team play. Well, the Timbers play 22 different players. The Sounders play 21 in this annual Cascadia preseason derby in Tucson, Arizona. Let's recap the match with our full match highlights. We'll start in the 33rd minute. Seattle opened the score.
Well, Vargas, who was lively in that first half, getting down the right-hand side, just trying to put the ball in. It's fortunate for the deflection that comes to the back stick for Buana, who does very well just to keep his concentration and steer that ball in.
You're talking to us.
But then for Andy Polo, goes and he runs at the center back, Delem. And the referee decides it's a penalty. I think for that the contact was outside, but Valeri, he wasn't to matter. He steps up to it and just tucks it in nicely to the side netting.
So it was 1-1 at halftime, and Walla Buana and Diego Valeri were the goal scorers. The Timbers thought they had another penalty early in the second half. It was then called back for an offside infraction, and then they do get their second just 2 minutes before the 90th minute.
Well, knew who the left back is wanting a foul here. Thought he had a case, but Esprilla, he continued on his run and just squares it across for Bobasi, who does well just to tuck it in, just puts himself in that middle of goal. You're tracking a Bobasi here. He doesn't get caught towards the ball, just drifts off the back of defenders, and then he comes to life and just needs that final touch.
the Timbers Army that's here, they're Tetrising. They're happy with a 2-1 win over the Seattle Sounders. As we mentioned, next up for the Sounders, 9 a.m. against FC Dallas on Saturday. We'll see their starters in that one. The Timbers, 6 p.m. Pacific time against the Red Bulls on Saturday, both here in Tucson. For Matt Johnson, for Ross Smith, for our entire crew here at the Mobile Mini Sun Cup in Tucson, Arizona, I'm Jake Sivan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Final score, Timbers 2, Sounders 1. Good night from Tucson.